Hi, I'm Anne. Thanks for stopping by my channel. I would like to talk today a little bit about what brought me joy today. If you were with me yesterday for yesterday's video, I introduced myself, I introduced the channel. Really the goal of this channel is to help us all to find intentional joy, really be intentional about bringing joy into our lives. I think very often when we get to this stage of life in particular, I don't know how much time any of us has left on this planet, and I really believe that we should be intentional about making sure we're having fun, that every day is filled with moments that bring us joy. It needs to be meaningful and impactful and just fun. Let's just start having fun again. I think, even when you're younger, you get so wrapped up in the daily grind that it's easy to forget to have fun, much like we did when we were kids. When we were kids, it was easy, it came naturally. Once you become an adult and life starts to get in the way, sometimes, we forget to have fun. So now that I've turned 60, I'm making it my mission to make sure that I find moments of joy every single day. And I started a challenge yesterday, 30 days. Hopefully it goes for longer than that, but the true challenge is 30 days every day to seek out moments of intentional joy. I'm intentionally bringing joy back into my life. Not that I didn't have joy before, but I'm really focusing on it now a lot more. And I invited anyone who's watching these videos to do it with me. I would so love it if you would leave me a comment to tell me what brought you joy today. Follow along every day and share with me, like I'm going to share with you. Yesterday I talked about my daughter's dog and how much joy he brings to me. And I know that the photos that I put up look like two different dogs. And that is because when Chester was a young puppy, he was really kind of more red and apricot in color. And as he's getting older, he's losing that color and becoming blonde. So he will be 2 in August, and both of those photographs that I put in yesterday's video are of the same dog. That's Chester. Today I want to talk a little bit about the people in our lives, the connections that we have, family, friends. And I know that sometimes family can make you crazier than it does bring you joy. We all have those moments and we all have those connections that sometimes just make us crazy. But I think it's really important to take a moment to reflect on how important the people are in our lives who support us, who love us, and who we love and want to support as best we can. In my family in particular, this is something that I think about a lot, because we have had, we've lost a lot of people in our family. I was one of 7 children, and 2 wonderful, loving parents. And my first experience with loss was just before my 10th birthday when my mother died of cancer. So over the years, we've lost a number of people. We discovered several years ago that there's a gene mutation that runs in our family called C9orf72, which causes ALS and front temporal lobe dementia. Unfortunately, it runs through my dad's side of the family, and before they knew about the gene, we lost my dad's sister, my aunt, in New York to ALS. She had the classic ALS symptoms. And then my dad passed away several years ago when my youngest daughter was only 3. He had the dementia, and then he had the classic symptoms of ALS, but at that time they didn't know about the gene mutation, so we didn't know that the two were connected. They both died at the age of 79. My sister Kathleen died at the age of 59. She developed some of the front temporal lobe dementia symptoms after her husband died of kidney cancer in 2014, and then she developed, after the psychiatric symptoms, she developed the classic ALS symptoms, and she, I think, passed away about 18 months after she was diagnosed with ALS. So it was through Kathleen that genetic testing was done, and we learned that this gene exists in our family. Some of us in the family were tested for it. I'm negative. I know my sister is negative. Not everybody wanted to be tested, which is, each individual's choice. And my niece, unfortunately, who is an incredible registered nurse who provided palliative care for her mom at home before my sister passed, unfortunately, she's positive for this gene mutation. And with this particular gene mutation, there's a 50-50 chance that you may inherit the gene if a parent has it. But if you have inherited the gene, your chances of getting symptoms are 100%. So, unfortunately, Jillian is already starting to see some of the preliminary symptoms. So we are really doing a lot of fundraising, and we did the walk to end ALS at the end of June. Our family came together and had some friends join us as well, and we did the walkathon. I have been doing fundraising for ALS Canada for a number of years because I actually knew a couple of people who had ALS before I even knew it was a thing in my family. And so some friends convinced me to do the Float Your Fanny Down the Ganny in Port Hope in Ontario. And I'll put up a photograph of that. It was basically it was actually a really fun day where people build their own rafts and you go rafting down the Port Hope, the river in Port Hope, and it was a lot of fun. But I was really tired after, I have to say, and I think the younger ones need to do it from now on. But it was a blast. It was a great time, and it was for a good cause. We raised some money for ALS Canada, and so that's something that I focus on every year. And so I'm grateful, so grateful to have a supportive family. I have 2 daughters who mean the world to me. I have a stepson. I have friends who are willing to come out and walk with me for the walkathon, get into a raft with me and float down a river. It was actually their idea, I have to say. And I'm grateful that they invited me to do it because it was fun. So yeah, I think for today, I want to really say that what brings me joy today is thinking about the people in my life and getting to spend time with them. This morning, I spent time with one of my daughters, and I was just laughing hysterically. Sometimes, my daughters are so entertaining, both of them. They're very different people, but they just make me laugh. And they're both in their 20s now and both adults and are living wonderful lives. And I just love spending time with them. They just bring me such joy. Now, as I said, families can get on each other's nerves and drive each other crazy, and we have some of that in our family too. Every family does. But overall, I'm incredibly grateful for the people that I have in my life. And I hope you are too. I think what I'd like to do as well is start sharing some stories from some of the seniors that I've worked with, without sharing any names. I want to maintain confidentiality for everyone. But I have known some really incredible people. And one of the things that I have so loved about working with seniors is getting to learn about their lives and learning about their life histories. They all have such rich life histories. And I think it's really important that we remember them. So today, I think the first person that I'd like to start talking about is a lady that I knew who lived to be 107. 107. She was amazing. She was probably about 102 when I met her, I want to say. She was over 100, I think. But there was nothing wrong with this lady. I mean, she walked with a walker, but she could throw that walker aside and dance when the music was right. She had a little bit of a hearing deficit, so she wore a hearing aid. But she was incredible. She had all of her faculties. She was completely intact. She had been a nurse in her young working life. And when I met her, I remember on a Remembrance Day, during a Remembrance Day ceremony, she stood up and she told everyone where she had been standing when the troops came home from World War I in Toronto. She remembered standing on Yonge Street as a young child, holding her mother's hand and watching the troops come home from World War I. I was just amazed by this lady. She loved politics. She loved to sit and watch politics. She could do that for hours. She could debate with you anything about politics. She was a staunch, very proud liberal supporter. And when I met her, she told me, I'll never forget what she said. She said, you know, dear, back in my day, there were only two political parties. If you were Catholic, you were liberal. If you were a Protestant, you were conservative. That's it. That's all we needed. There was none of this Green Party nonsense, none of this NDP nonsense. She was amazing. And she was such a big fan of the Trudeau family. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. She was just such a fan of them. And so my team and I, you know, as people do when they're dealing with seniors, we always stop to think about how can we make someone's life better? What can we do for them that's meaningful to them? And so we worked for 2 years to try to get Mr. Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, who was Prime Minister at the time, to come to Ontario, well, where we were in Ontario, just east of Toronto, to visit this lady. Couldn't quite achieve that. But I did run into, at a party one night, I ran into someone that I had worked with many years before who happened to work in Mr. Trudeau's office and had some connections. She had, I don't think she was working with him any longer, but she had at one point. And so she was able to connect me with some people who were able to arrange a virtual meeting for this resident. Couldn't get him there in person, but we could get him there virtually. And so we set up this meeting for her. And I don't quite think she understood exactly what was going to happen. I escorted her from her suite to my office, and we had everything set up on my computer. And so I said to her, what are you going to ask Mr. Trudeau when you get to see him? And his team had been asking me for weeks, you're sure she's a fan, right? She's not gonna, you know, he's not gonna get on there and she's gonna complain about something. She's truly a fan. And I said, oh yeah, no, she loves him. And so when I asked her what she was going to ask him about, she went, oh, I'm not gonna ask him anything. I'm gonna tell him. And I went, oh my God. So I brought her to my office, sat her in the chair. Her daughter was there. We had someone from a newspaper there taking photographs. We had some other team members there. And the moment that Mr. Trudeau's face came on the screen and he said, hello, called her by her name, she instantly became like a 16-year-old fangirl. Her voice went up an octave, and he was so gracious with her. Whatever you think about, you know, whatever your beliefs are about politics and about Mr. Trudeau, I have to tell you, he was so lovely with her. He spent a good 15 minutes with her on the call, asked her all about her life, intently listened while she told him about being a nurse and what that was like. And it was just so heartwarming to watch. And of course, the newspaper was there and took photographs. And so there was a photograph in the newspaper, and this lady was over the moon. She lived for probably about 2 years after that. And as soon as that newspaper came out, she carried it with her everywhere. She took it to the dining room. She showed all of her friends. So things like that happen. You know, there are people in senior living who really genuinely care about their residents and go out of their way to find moments that bring people joy. And that was a moment of joy that didn't just bring joy to the resident, but it brought joy to each and every single one of us as well. So just thought I would share that little story with you. And I'll try to share some more stories because there are lots. I've met some really wonderful people in my years in senior living. So I'll try to share a few more without divulging any confidential information or personal information about people. So thank you for stopping in today. I hope you have found something that brings you joy today. Another thing that brings me joy is just seeing behind me that blue sky. Oh my goodness. Nice sunshiny weather. You will never hear me complain. I know it can get hot, and it's been hot here in Toronto, but I try not to complain in the summertime because I complain a lot in the winter. So Yeah, I'm happy today to see the blue sky and the sunshine. Makes me happy, brings me joy. So I hope you found something that brought you joy today, and I hope that you take a moment and share it with me in the comments below. Thank you so much. It's great to have you here, and I will chat with you again tomorrow.